Welcome to the road to 1 million US dollars. Let's get right into the Bitcoin chart for today, starting on this 4-hour time frame for Bitcoin, because after seeing this rejection from this big level of resistance yesterday, we are now slowly resuming back to the upside. In terms of resistance to the upside, we do have this big level sitting from 99K all the way up to 100,000 US dollars in the Bitcoin price. The reason I am also expecting some resistance here is because we have seen some previous price action around this level where we actually got rejected multiple times. And even here recently, we got rejected from this same level. So therefore, the expectation was that we weren't just going to blast straight through this level. And so far, that has played out as expected. And even on this move to the upside that we're seeing right now, in the case that we start breaching the 99,000 US dollar level, do be on the lookout for a potential rejection from that level once again. Now, of course, this time we can actually break through, but at the same time, it is good practice to just be a little bit more cautious when you're trying to long into a level of resistance. Either way, if we do check back in with the base case scenario, this is basically still just playing out as expected. We broke this line of resistance here, and now we're looking for higher price action once again, even though, yes, in the short term, we have that resistance there. But broadly speaking, I do think it is likely that at some point we are going to make new highs for Bitcoin once again. We can also check back in with this falling wedge pattern here on the 4-hour time frame. So far, we saw a breakout, retest, resumption from there. This is also playing ball exactly as expected. The price target for this is about 100,000 US dollars in the Bitcoin price, and currently we're trading at about 98.5K. So as long as we do not trade below the point of invalidation, the point of the breakout, sitting at 93.2K, then basically Bitcoin is just targeting 100K in the Bitcoin price. Now, of course, if I start to see some reversal signals here, like perhaps we see some kind of bearish divergence starting to form on this 4-hour time frame, perhaps we see some kind of rejection from that 100K level, maybe even, at that point, I will, of course, have to start looking towards potentially coming down to grab a bunch of liquidity here. But until I actually see that rejection, Bitcoin is still simply targeting 100K. Even if other people are bearish here, that is simply not what the charts are telling me right now. Now, in a weekend, we always check back in with the Bitcoin CME gaps. Currently, there are actually 2 CME gaps close to the Bitcoin price that we should take into consideration. First of all, we have a CME gap to the downside sitting at about 93.2K. And we have a CME gap to the upside at about 99.2K. So especially if you now on Sunday see this CME gap to the upside getting filled while we are actually in that big level of resistance, again, try to be a little bit more cautious because potentially we could be rejecting from that level to maybe even fill this CME gap. Now, of course, it doesn't have to play out like that, but I do think it is good practice to basically just warn you guys about the potential of that happening. Another thing is the Bitcoin liquidation heat map. We do have some liquidity sitting at that exact CME gap at about 99.2K. But right now on this 1 week time frame, most of the liquidity is in fact to the downside, sitting at 95.7K. And there's also a big pocket of liquidity sitting at about 91.5K. Does that mean that we now need to be extremely worried about some major crash to the downside? Well, simply said, no, because we are in an uptrend. But at the same time, if you now start seeing reversal signals and you start seeing some kind of rejection in the charts and the momentum kind of shifting, well, in that case, you could start looking towards that liquidity to the downside as some potential price targets in the short term. If we zoom out here, though, we do have a lot of liquidity sitting at about 100K, about $10 billion worth of liquidity sitting there. And then we even have liquidity as high as about 108K in the Bitcoin price. Next, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin ETF flow tables. Yesterday, we actually saw a net inflow of over $900 million into the Bitcoin ETFs. And yes, so long as they keep buying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin every single weekday, then this is going to have an upwards pressuring effect on the Bitcoin price. Recently here, we saw a couple days of net outflows, but after that, the Bitcoin ETFs have basically been flip-flopping between getting bullish inflows and bearish outflows. So it still remains to be seen here what kind of momentum we're actually going to get in the market. And the reason I say it remains to be seen what kind of momentum we're going to see next here is because if I just take a look at this 1 day time frame, we got this top here at about 108K. From there, we went all the way to this big level of support, sitting from 93 all the way down to 91K. And right now we're about to run into a level of resistance once again. So that's why it's important to pay attention to the charts right now. Are we going to see that breakout, or are we going to see a rejection from that level of resistance? That is exactly what I think we should be looking out for in the charts right here. Either way, this has been today's market update. Don't forget to join the Road to 1 Million community on Discord. This is one of the most active crypto trading communities in the crypto space right now. You can join this completely for free, and you can find the link to it in the video description. But regardless, if you do end up joining or not, thank you for watching once again, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.